a reading from Bishop Helen Ann. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou i te whare, nā mihi o te rangi nei kia tātou. Kia koe te koromatua Andrew, koutou ngā mema pōti o te kaunihira, nei rā te mihi kia koutou. I whakaoti nei i nā pō, i tērā te kautau māhere, hoi anō mihi ana kia koutou e whakatau, e whakaea i tērā o ngā māhere. Nō reira mihi ana kia koutou, ko ngā piki ngā hekinga i roto i tau patu, ana kōti i a koutou. Nō reira tēnei rā te mihi kia koutou. Hoi anō, kai inoi tātou. E pai te matua nei rā mātou e whakamoemiti a whakawhetai atu nei ki a koe i tēnei rangi. Kia whakapiri mai, kia whakatata mai koe ki a mātou i roto i ngā mahi o te rangi nei. Ana kai o mātou nei aro, ngā kaupapa mo tēnei rangi, hei whakaro hia mo te taone nui a kirikiri ro. Nō reire e pai te matua a whina nei, i tō mātou nei koromatua Andrew, ne ngā mema pōti o te kaunihira nei, kia whakaro tika, kia whakaro pai, kia whakaro polo, ki ngā mahi kai mo i a rātou. Nō reire e pai te matua huri no i tō tātou nei kaunihira i tēnei rā, tai atu ki ngā kaimahi i tēnei, te mihi atu tēnei, te whakamoemiti ki a koe e pai te matua i roto i tautama i Ukaraiti. Āmene.
Members of Council, Mayor, good morning. It's my last time in your presence, and I'd like to thank you for the privilege of being in your presence, in your midst, and I will be a Love the Tron ambassador in the Northern Hemisphere, in the frozen north. Reading this morning some words from the Apostle Paul in his letter to the Galatians. By contrast, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against such things. Thank you.
So I declare the meeting of the council meeting of the 14th of December 2017 open at 10:42. I personally want to thank the Right Reverend Helen Ann for your cathedral and letting yourself and your staff be available for the Bible readings through this year. I do appreciate it, and I also want to thank Tame, who's not here, and Muna for supporting with a karakia before each council meeting, and I'm really pleased with what you do and how it's going, and the blessing that you bring into this chamber by being here. So thanks so much, and Helen Ann, we wish you the very best with your new venture, and it's and thank you for the time and what you put into the city of Hamilton while you've been here. Much appreciated, and for letting my daughter get married in your cathedral. Much appreciated. Okay, apologies, I'll hand over to Democracy.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. Kia ora tātou. So this morning we have apologies for Councillor Taylor, who won't be with us today, and Councillor Pascoe, who will be absent from the meeting between 10:30 and 12:30. Thank you, Councillor Pascoe.
Has anyone else got anything else they need to apologise for?
I'm just wondering, the agenda, if we were able, noting that Councillor Pascoe has to be absent from 10:30 on, if we were able to take item 11 and put that immediately after the public forum.
Yeah, we are going to go, Thomas is here, so we're going to go to Thomas's paper first, and then straight after that we will, but I will get to that. So we need a mover and a seconder, James and Councillor Gary, for apologies. All those for, any against, carried. Confirmation of agenda. So Leanne's going to read the order, but if you could just let us possibly mix this up a little bit today if we have to, just to accommodate staff and people coming and going. But thank you, Leanne.
Right, so this morning we are taking item 11 earlier in the agenda. That's the recommendation from Community Services Committee relating to the road naming for Dame Hilda Ross. Please note that item 9, Vibrant Hamilton Trust attachments 1 and 2 excuse me, have been circulated under separate cover. That item 10, application for temporary extension to Hamilton Alcohol Control Bylaw for the International Sevens, needs to be taken prior to 12:30 to accommodate external presenters. And please also note that additional attachment has been circulated very recently for item 14, and that relates to the recommendation from the Growth and Infrastructure Committee relating to Hamilton City Speed Bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have a mover? Councillor James, seconded by Councillor Gary. All those for, any against? Carried. Declarations of interest. Public forum. Thank you, Leanne.
Right. This morning in public forum we have representatives from Toti speaking to item 11, which is the road naming for Dame Hilda Ross. Is that you? So, Margaret, come forward. Welcome.
Just to remind members, it's 3 minutes total. That may well mean there's no time for questions. So it's 3 minutes total, including any questions. Thank you and welcome, past Mayor of Hamilton. And yeah, I'll get you to introduce yourselves just in case.
Season's greetings, Mayor Andrew and councillors and staff. Margaret Evans, Mavora Hamilton. We are members of Toti and we sense a great feeling of relief in the building today. We gather you finished earlier than expected last night. You've done incredibly well. We just wanted to come today because this is the second reading of our application to rename Wood Street as Dame Hilda Ross Place, and emphasise to you that this application came to council because this is where Dame Hilda Ross walked. Some of you who were part of the previous council may recall we produced a photograph which showed Dame Hilda leading the Women's Auxiliary at the time of the Second World War, marching along Ward Street as part of the community recognition of the need for the home front and the activity. So this is a very site-specific application and links in extremely well, of course, with your previous approval for the statue. And this statue is a pretty bold statue, as you know. We think it's going to be much loved by the community. Council policy came up for some discussion at your committee meeting under Councillor Paula. We want to emphasise that this application is very much in accordance with policy, and I refer you to that same report to avoid confusion where an existing road is severed. That's the primary reason for a renaming, and that's what's happened here with Centre Place crossing the road. It also is to acknowledge people who were important to the history of the area. As I said, this is where Hilda Ross walked. She was part of the show, she was part of the old show building, she was part of the original art gallery and library, and she was certainly the first woman elected to this council, which was based here as well. So we see, although there's 13 letters in Dame Hilda Ross Place, and the policy says 12, we don't think that's a significant departure. And finally, we want to say we would very much like, whatever you decide, to suggest that you have one councillor who might work with us over the next few months as we develop the sculpture and also work on the landscaping proposals with staff. We think that would just make it much easier for everybody. Vanessa Williams from the CB Association had hoped to be with us today, but her child is getting an award at Southall this morning, but she wanted to emphasise her support and her association's support for this change. They think this will give a great lift to that area of town.
All right, thank you very much. Time's up, you're being on, so thank you for your time, thank you for coming in. If you'd like to wait, so it won't be too long before we hear your paper. Thomas, yeah, we'll come straight in with you now, please. So we're now going to item 9, which is page 23.
Thanks for having me here. You've got a paper there, Margaret. Thank you. I'll run through this very quickly. If I can... Oh, there we go. So the background is Waikato Foundation Trust, which was a charitable trust, came out of electricity money, I understand, which was able to fund projects of a regional community nature across the sub-region. That was devolved, and Waipa went ahead and did the Don Rowland Centre, and the other two constituent local authorities set up new charitable trusts. Excuse me. So Vibrant was set up in 2010 with various charitable objects focused around the City of Hamilton and its communities. What it's done over the last few years is grown its fund through a combination of I guess, careful and growth investment, combination of those. Made a number of grants to projects around the city, planting at Lake Waiwhakareke, Hamilton Gardens, Destination Playgrounds, laneway murals. The way we've applied that is intending to maintain the fund, grow the fund, and make something available for these projects as the need arises. Nice pictures. That's the gardens. That's some planting. And that's a playground. I think. Could be someone's house. The comments hesitate to phrase these as issues because they haven't been, but one of the things we've discussed since we've been involved in the structure of the trustees has been the mayor ex officio. We've had currently Lance Vervoort on as a trustee, myself, Malcolm Brooker, who was involved in the Waikato Foundation Trust, and Lynette Flowers, who's involved with Trust Waikato. So we've had this role of funding projects. We've at times asked ourselves, should we be more of a catalyst or coordinator for other funders? More latterly, probably assess Momentum Foundation has assumed some of that role. Being a CCO has been an interesting dynamic. So the nature of being a CCO or council-controlled organisation is that council appoints the trustees. That's what gives us that status. And then the trustees go ahead and comply with the trust deed, exercise their discretion over the grant applications presented to them. So because of that, we have to get audited. Our fund manager is already audited and we handle very little money. So it's been a bit of a pain, but it's just one of those things we have to do. So we've debated at various times the merits or otherwise of being a CCO. And obviously the future of the trust, whether we continue to make what I'd call smallish but important grants. Our fund is 6 million versus Trust Waikato much more than that, for example. Whether we merge with another fund or whether we just try to help drive a key project. Earlier HCC paper presented here talked about some key headings, options of transferring to another charity, funding a key project and winding up, topping up community grants or a special funding round. Just some of the other things that the trustees have talked about from time to time would be, for example, a loan rather than a distribution to a key project. transferring the fund to Momentum to administer without being a CCO perhaps, so removing that layer of compliance or bureaucracy, or perhaps ring-fenced operational funding of projects to ensure their sustainability. Very mindful, and a couple of days ago, a bit of HCC discussion about this, and we head into a statement of intent process in the new year. So just made a couple of comments there about how that's approached or structured. Process we have to follow the deed, so just a few steps to go through there. And I guess a bit of a question about the timing, given I'd presume, but don't know, whether theatre money is needed immediately. Maybe a longer term sort of question. But that was all. I just wanted to run through the background, where it's come from, CCO structure, what it's been doing, and yeah, pathway forward.
Okay, we'll open for questions. The questions are about the trust and the accounts from the last year. The questions aren't to vary on to where we're going forward from here in the resolutions passed in the 10-year plan yesterday. This isn't an appropriate forum to be discussing that. So it's questions about the report. Thank you.
So we're now discussing that particular item on the agenda.
So,
We'll be asking questions of what he actually raised in his address.
so Thomas is here to present the report.
Yep.
This isn't an appropriate forum to be discussing what we passed yesterday in the 10-year plan. So I'm happy to take questions that are around this report.
We're on item 9. The public forum. No, we're on item 9.
No, we're on the agenda at the moment, is my
item
understanding.
9, yeah. Councillor Paula.
Sorry, point of clarity then before I ask my question. Are we actually in the item? Is Thomas here as debating the item? Is he speaking to the item and we've opened it? Or is he in public forum?
No,
Thomas is here as the chair of the CCO that is...
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Sorry for not clarifying that at the outset. Yes, I'm simply here to address the item. Yeah, sorry about that.
I didn't introduce it properly, so...
Sorry, I was just a bit confused because you came directly after Margaret and Co. Hey?
Sorry, I jumped you straight in after the public forum because I saw you here and I know you want to get away, so...
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you. So, so your view is that this needs to be put, whatever model we land on, it has to be sustainable, not around reducing the fund or making it less accessible in the future, but actually building its sustainability?
Not necessarily. I think all I'm indicating is that the future of the trust is something that's been discussed almost since its inception because of the nature of it. So there are, I suppose, a range of scenarios that have been discussed by the trustees. We're mindful of our structure and our obligations. Yeah, that's all.
No, yeah, no, I get there's a number of structures that are possible, but the principle there can be a number of principles: spend something or sustain the fund and spend off it, like you say, broker advantage off it. What's the view of the trust? Is it to, spend it and then
again,
whatever happens, happens?
We haven't reached any formal conclusion as a trust board around that. We've simply been debating different scenarios. There's been, without any formal resolution, discussions around contributing to an important project, for example. There's been discussion around continuing to do what we have done over a period of time, which is make grants to particular projects. So there's no single fixed view among the trustees at this point, and we've certainly been very keen to ask Council for direction around some of that.
So just to stop you there, Paula, questions about the annual report is where we are here. This is what Thomas is here to
No,
present. It's clearly on the
I've
agenda,
finished.
the reason he's
Thank
here.
you.
So, Councillor Rob.
Thanks, Chair. Look, Thomas, you mentioned that the history of the trust has been to make smallish grants. Do you think, on reflection, those smallish grants, of smallish amounts, have been pretty successful for the areas in which those, for the particular projects in which those grants were made?
Yes, I believe they have been. Yeah.
And you would
that's-
see that as a continuing, some of your trustees would see that as a continuing option?
Well,
Excuse
no.
me, Rob, that's not appropriate. It's very leading. You know exactly where we're going. I've said this is about the annual report. This isn't about the future of the trust.
Okay. Will you be making a submission on the 10-year plan, given the decision made a couple of days ago?
Trustees haven't even considered that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're now in debate.
Thomas, I just noticed on paragraph 7, the portfolio didn't have a good year this year.
It's had a better year towards the end of the year, but as at the report date, it hadn't had the best year. Element of fluctuation. So to talk through our funding mix, we've set a mandate with GMI around a sort of 45-55 split of fixed interest and growth funding. The nature of growth investments is they do have some volatility. Over the last few years, overall, they've done very well, and even the last little period of time done very well. We are always mindful of reviewing that mandate, making sure we're not being speculative with this fund, or too speculative. But that combination of investments has served us well, and we've been very mindful of ensuring that the trust fund is preserved and grown.
Yeah, and I agree that it has done very well. And I'm not trying to pick a bad year and throw that in your face. And it's
It's something we're aware of,
Yep.
but given the nature of the trustees and their background, we're trying to take a long-term view.
no donations
about
to the
things from
top
day one.
political party.
Sorry, what's that?
No donations to the top political party.
I can
Thank you,
confirm there
Gary.
haven't been.
Okay, we're in debate. Okay, there is no debate, so we'll go Councillor Deputy Mayor Martin.
I just want to, I'm sure I speak for all of us, to place on record my thanks for your good self, and also for former City Councillor Malcolm Brooker and also Lynette Flowers, and thank you for the generosity of your time and expertise. And I think I'd speak for all of us in just conveying that to you, and if you could convey that to my good friend Malcolm and Lynette, that would be great. So thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the board.
Siggy and Mark. The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, so just is the group members happy that we go to 2-minute debate with 1 minute to extra time? Thank you, appreciate that. All right, so now we'll move to item.
Sorry, Mayor Andrew, just a point of process. I realised we didn't have a mover and a seconder. We got caught up in the line.
Sorry.
So if we could have a mover and a seconder for Vibrant.
So Vibrant Hamilton Trust was moved by myself, and Deputy Mayor seconded it, just for the record. We're now going to the street naming. So we will take the report as read. There is a motion to put on the board, Deputy Mayor's motion, seconded by Councillor Ange. So if we can get that on the board. Okay, so we'll go straight to the board to vote on this one. Didn't have anyone's name on the board. So we're voting. Any debate? No. Okay. Councillor Mark.
I'm not going to. I have no reason to change my mind on what essentially is C. I'm still against the renaming of the eastern section of Ward Street. I don't think it's any more confusing having it called Ward Street or Dame Hilda Ross Place. No disrespect to Dame Hilda Ross, who was a prominent Hamiltonian and who walked that street. I will note that I heard the other day in the tea room that Hamilton was named after someone who hasn't even walked any of our streets. So I think that argument is a little bit spurious. I know the majority of the people who work in Ward Street are against the move, and I still don't see, there are so many new things that we could be naming after the great lady that I just don't feel comfortable about going over someone else's history with another piece of history by saying that piece of history is more important than Ward Street. So nothing's changed my mind. I mean, no disrespect to the great work that Toti's done. I think the plaza will be magnificent. I wish I'd got to meet Dame Hilda myself, but yeah, I'm against it.
Councillor Paula.
Thank you. I've been in two minds all along because either which way we go, we're going to upset either the business owners or someone else. So, and at the end of the day, this is about giving all parties their due respect. Having said that, my primary objective with this project is to ensure that the plaza is something special, not just a renaming of a corner of a road or whatever, that it's actually a space that gives support and meaning to the purpose of the artwork. Because and being another woman in politics, of course, I think it's a great honour to have that piece of work going up. And, you know, it says something to all us women in politics about where we can go and how we can be successful in playing a positive part in our city. So I'm really excited about that. So I'm just going to say that I'm not going to sweat this one too much. It'll be what it will be, but I'm really interested, Mayor Andrew, in working with Toti, and I'd be happy to include another councillor who may well be interested also to make sure that we get the best outcome from that space, and you know, so it can be a space that we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I think it was well known from the beginning that I had preferred Count Frankenfurter to be there, but I've changed my mind over time. Look, we still have a Ward Street, which is from Anglesey heading west, so we have not got rid of that name totally. I've changed my mind on this because I've had a good look at it and studied it. And for a woman who did quite a bit with our World War II returned servicemen, I think she needs some sort of recognition as well. And since my son is now in the military, so it's kind of swayed me a bit. So I'm all for it. And if there was nobody else that wanted to give Paula a hand, then I'd be privileged to do that.
Councillor Dave.
There's a queue wanting to join in and help, which is good. No. I think we should be thankful as a council that we've got a community organisation that's actively working for modern recognition of our history, and I'm actually quite excited about what I see as a bit of a reinvention of that end of former Ward Street. I support the Deputy Mayor and Councillor O'Leary's motion. I note that whenever we have roading confusion, and this has happened several times on council, Thomas turning into Baverstock is one of them, when we had two Thomases in different areas. There were people that were a bit disgruntled, they had to change their cards, and that was all worked through. People had time to recognise the change, and I think we're going to have time here. I think it's not only going to be a recognition of our historical past, it's going to avoid confusion for Hamiltonians, because we've got two totally disconnected parts of Ward Street, unless you're on foot at the moment. I think it's a sensible idea, in fact so sensible that it's a no-brainer.
Councillor Leo.
You're back on the 31st of October 2017. We declined the application to call it Dame Hilda Ross Way. I don't know, I'm just getting a bit confused that we make a decision and then we bring it back if we're not satisfied with the outcome of that decision. So I just wonder how many bites at the cherry we've got to have on this one. And I will be opposed to the motion.
Yes.
Recommendation from the Community Services Committee, which is required to come here for a final decision?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Councillor Ange.
Thank you. Look, I'm certainly not sweating this one. I know that the work that's gone into this, I've been supportive right from the start, which was some years ago. Where are they? There they some years ago now. They've been working on this, and often when you change a street name, people in that area for some time call it by its previous name, but no one remembers Marlborough Place, and I see the recognition on people's faces when they now say Sappermore Jones about the event that we had, which was spectacular that day, about the artwork and indeed about the person Sappermore Jones. So I am fully supportive of this, and I do believe that Toti have received a letter of support from the Hamilton Central Business Association, who have canvassed their businesses.
Deputy Mayor Martin.
Thank you. I just want to add, and she can turn it down, but D appoints Councillor Southwick and Councillor O'Leary, and the reason for that is Councillor O'Leary did a lot of work on the ward Norris Park, so is pretty intimately involved with that area, and that at least we'll always have one that can be working with Toti if one of you can't come. So with the leave of the second, I just want to add O'Leary to after Southgate, and Paula herself mentioned she'd be happy with a colleague. The other thing too, and also acknowledging Angela's, quite fitting Angela's role as Chair of the Women in Politics. This is really fitting in a whole range.
Just sorry to interrupt.
Do you have a leave? Do you give me leave?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. The other thing, it's really appropriate that the Hilda Ross was the first woman Deputy Mayor of the city, first woman Councillor of the city, first Hamilton woman MP, and for the national government, which I know reasonably well, was the first cabinet minister. And it's really appropriate that the major architect behind this project, with an acknowledging Mavora's great work and the others in Toti Trust, is our first woman Mayor, Margaret Evans. So there's a kind of a whole linkage, if I can say. And when the statue is opened and released, I think we will get national coverage because not only was Hilda Ross a wonderful daughter of the Waikato, but she was a trailblazer in terms of her excellent work as a minister in the Holland national government. And the only other thing I'd also say, I acknowledge there's been concerns from some businesses, but the owners of the buildings there, the Hamilton Business Association, and look, I don't have necessarily great expertise, but I would have thought in the end, once the initial inconvenience has happened, to have your address on Hamilton's premier street with an amazing statue and plaza and all of that, it will be, in my view, a very high-profile address. Thank you, Toti. Thank you, former Mayor Margaret Evans and Mavora and team, for this wonderful initiative.
Councillor Siggy.
Just short thing. Thank you so much to Mavora and to Margaret. I mean, I just think it's wonderful. Coming 30 plus years ago to Hamilton, I think it was just, it was culturally dead. In my mind, especially coming from Europe, and I just think in the last few years it's just changed. The scene has changed in Hamilton, and I just want to congratulate Toti on this as well, with all the wonderful statues you bring and the history you bring back into the city, which is so important for any city, and acknowledging women. Usually we hear about men and have lots of statues of men, but it is wonderful to have actually women acknowledged that have done, because, you know, even behind every great man is an amazing woman, but it's nice to have them in the front for once. So thank you so much for that, and keep pushing us, because, even if we say no, you know that, you just keep coming back, like I used to do. So and I think that's wonderful. I think it's wonderful when people just keep, if they believe in something, they keep coming back. And I'm totally for that change, so I'll vote for the motion. Thank you.
So, my mother was a strong woman. She was a matriarch of my family, and she raised a fine family who've done very well, and a lot of credit for my family's success goes back to my mother. And this statue of Dame Hilda Ross is fantastic, and today we acknowledge Dame Hilda Ross, but I also want to bring our attention to former Mayor Margaret Evans, who's not a statue. She's here in our midst, and we just acknowledge you and appreciate you here today for what you've done for the city, for what you're continuing to do for the city, that this city you're totally consumed and you only want the best for the city, and we just thank you. Thank you for honouring the strong woman in leadership who forged a way for you to come through and for others to come through after you, including Prime Ministers. And we just strongly appreciate you for what you've done while you're here with us, not in statue form. So well done, Margaret Evans. All right, we'll go to the board to vote, unless you'd like a right of reply, Deputy Mayor.
I think you've summed it up very well.
The motion is carried 9-4, 2 against.
Thank you very much, well done. Okay, we'll now go to item 10. The presenters are here for that. So it's page 25. Okay, we'll take the report as read. If there's anything of particular interest you need to point out, otherwise we'll go straight to questions.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of points I did wish to make. Just to reaffirm that obviously there's three parts to this that Council needs to be satisfied about. One was around the area to be covered has previously experienced a high level of crime or disorder, and Detective Inspector, I'd like to know, sorry, I'll start again. Introduce Detective Inspector Hal Jones, who is the Intelligence Manager for Waikato Police. He will also be the Police Commander for the responses in and around the Sevens tournament in February. So I'd like to welcome you. Just on that, Detective Inspector Jones is here to answer. He has some data if required into the detail around the crime patterns in the area. Second thing is whether or not the introduction of a temporary ban, I stress it's a temporary ban for the 2 days, whether that's appropriate and proportionate in the light of the evidence. And thirdly, can it be justified as a reasonable limitation on people's rights and freedoms? That's all the requirements under the Local Government Act before that can actually be approved. On that basis, we're in your hands, Mayor Andrew, as to whether you wish to just have us respond to questions or produce further information.
Okay, so we'll take the report as read. We'll take the staff recommendation as being moved by Angela, and yep, seconded by Leo. I think that's appropriate, Leo, with your background. And we will go to Councillor Gary.
Thank you. You're extending it to the blue area?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So just explain to me what's the difference. So at the moment, a member of the public could carry a bottle and walk down Willoughby Street, say, and drink it. Now he or she could not?
They can do that currently can do that between the hours of 6 a.m. in the morning and 10 p.m. at night. Outside of that, there is a 24-hour liquor ban across all public places in the city.
Okay, anywhere.
Okay. So all that does is restrict that for that additional 16-hour period for each of the 2 days.
Thank you. There are, I know, I'm pretty sure at least 2 football clubs and a bowling club and things like that, which they sell alcohol. I think Fraser Tech's in there. I certainly know All Boys is in there, and I think the bowling club is in this area. Does that affect their ability to trade?
Doesn't affect their ability to trade or any other member of the public who is on private property or anything else.
Trade alcohol, I mean.
Yeah, no, they can trade because they're trading pursuant to a licence.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councillor Ange.
Thank you. And the ban is people can carry liquor, or carry alcohol, but that it must not be open or consumed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yep. And just a second question. I noticed Jeff Neem sitting up the back there. And I know you do excellent work, Jeff. Just make sure that we ensure the message of this alcohol ban is absolutely on point, because what we don't want is the community to think that we are banning alcohol in the stadium, because I think that's what Wellington did, and that may have contributed to the decline of the event, if I'm to believe media. And I know Jeff will handle that.
We've currently got in place some media messaging. There'll be some things going out on the website. There will be direct contact with event patrons and inclusion in the Ticketek pre-event emails, using social media, letter drops to neighbours in the immediate area, and will be some temporary signage going up in the area as well, if that gives you any confidence.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Mark.
Obviously, been in cahoots with the organisers of the event. They're all over this. Is that right?
Yes, we've spoken with New Zealand Rugby and with the Sevens promoters, and both are supportive of the proposal.
This is 37 South of Wellington.
Correct.
Yeah. And the bar owners in Victoria Street and the hospitality providers, they're all over this as well?
We've spoken to the principals, yes.
Yeah, and the response is good?
Yep.
Great. Cool. Thank you.
Councillor James.
Thank you. Just a side question for you, Detective Inspector. We're not going the Wellington way, are we, and breathalyse people as they go into the stadium?
Our intention is obviously to make this a safe event for the public, and to make sure it's an ongoing event for the public. So the way we police will be the normal way we police. The extension of that ban will basically, for that period, that area accounts for another 25% of alcohol-related offending. So it will have a significant effect on the stadium and on the surrounding environs.
Okay, so they're not actually breath testing people going into the stadium?
No.
Okay.
Certainly not from a police perspective.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the board to vote.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you, Constable. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelvin.
Kelvin. All right, so we now go to page 6, item 5. So we have a mover, Councillor James, seconded by myself. All those for, any against? Carried. We'll now go to page 14, item 6. Do we have a mover? Councillor Marks, seconded by Councillor James. All those for, any against? Carried. We now go to page 20, which is item 7, page 17. We have a mover. Councillor Siggy, seconded by Councillor James. All those for, any against? Carried. We now go to item 8, page 20. Do we have a I'll move, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those for, any against? Carried. We're now on item 12 on page 32.
We've got speed wobbles, have we? Whoa. Counter got confused. Me got confused when he said the 12 o'clock finished. You realised it was 12 o'clock. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yep. Moved by Councillor Ange, seconded by Councillor Siggy. All those for?
Aye.
Any against? Carried. Item 13. We have a mover. Page 33. I'll move, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those for?
Aye.
Any against? Carried. Item 14.
Just make sure that Councillor Gary's opposition future-proof.
Future-proof.
Yeah, future-proof.
Item 14. Moved by Councillor Mark, seconded by Councillor Paula.
Excuse me. Mayor Andrew, can we just ask the General Manager has a comment to bring to the attention of the committee in relation to this?
General Manager, one comment.
Yes, Councillor, if you look on page 37, recommendation B, it was dependent on Waikato District Council approving a speed change on their meeting of the 11th of December. So that didn't happen. They don't, in my understanding, they don't have a fundamental problem with changing the speed on Rotokauri Road, but they had other issues in the whole bundle of speed proposals, and they've deferred that to early in the new year. So my recommendation is to strike out recommendation B. So on bottom of page 37. And we'll bring back that early in the new year when Waikato District Council have formally made that.
The Nike option is what I have in mind. I believe that we should not be striking it out and having that thing come back again. I believe that we should confirm it, since we've already had the discussion at the growth infrastructure meeting, and have a additional port subject to and following approval by the Waikato District Council. So in other words, we've pre-decided that, and that, but it won't kick in unless and until they agree. So we don't have to put yet another agenda item on a future meeting. So that would be at the end of it. Sorry, I'm just looking at the wording here. It'd have to be in the in A, I think. Right at the start, subject to Waikato District Council approving their elements of the change, this council notes, etc., the rest of it.
Do we give them a time limit?
Well, I think the time limit's within the life of this council, I would imagine, but I mean, you don't want to pressure them. They've got their own process that they're trying to work through. I'm not, so, yeah.
So I think Robin might have a suggestion that might help, Councillor.
So I think just for legal purposes, we need to make sure that our bylaws are clean and both bylaws say the same thing. So I think where you're going, Councillor Dave, is the right track, that we support what they're doing. My recommendation would be that we don't specifically put anything in the bylaw at this stage, but as and when they make that decision, we put a file note on the front of that bylaw for public purposes, just to note that that change has been made, and then we pick it up next time we do our full bylaw review. Just so that we don't end up with one bylaw saying 100 and another bylaw saying 80.
No, I'm not. That's not what I'm suggesting.
No, I'm supporting the fact that we can agree in chambers, or suggest that you can agree in chambers to that change.
No, my
and we
problem
pick it
with
up later.
Sorry, Robin. My problem with that is that we will still have to come back and make a decision, and they will have made one, and then we'll be waiting to make one. Why don't we make one now, with an inaction clause that kicks in at the point that they agree and do their formal stuff? That's what I'm suggesting.
So yes, I agree with that. I'm just saying that we can't show that in our bylaw until they've done their half, because otherwise we end up with one direction of road having one speed limit and the other the other.
But that's the preamble that I'm talking about going with here. I do have a problem with the way this has come up. As chair of the committee, we passed a resolution, and I didn't get any notice of the glitch that's happened, where I think we could have worked out a wording. I'm suggesting that we put this on the table so that we can sit down at the morning tea break and work something out.
All right, agreed.
This on hold, and we'll come back to it after the morning tea break.
So just one other comment. We have one other administrative change to make as well. So just in the bylaw that the Growth and Infrastructure Committee, that had a reference to the 12th of December council meeting, and in fact the meeting is the 14th of December. So there's just some administrative changes to make to that, and so we'll incorporate that in the resolutions that we draft at morning tea.
So if General Manager Chris, if you could start working on that now, possibly ensuring that Dave's finished in case we don't get to morning tea.
Yeah,
so we can keep the meeting moving.
Yeah, I probably just need to get around the table with Councillor Dave just to fully understand his proposal.
Yeah, don't be shy to come behind him and talk while we're still moving forward with other papers. Okay, item 15, page 94. Calvin, are you? Oh, Luke, you're here. Good. So we'll actually we'll take this as read, but I'll hand over to you, Luke, to explain anything else you need to.
Thank you, Your Worship. Elected members, this is just an update report, just to give you all a summary of the activities that have been taking place between the staff and the various applicants in relation to the SHA. So essentially, it's an overview of what we've been doing since we received those expressions of interest, and giving you some overview also of the feedback and some of the key issues that have been raised in response to the public engagement we've undertaken on each of those expressions of interest. What I do want to bring to your attention is an additional resolution in relation to the Rotorua North proposal. In the last 3 days, myself and my team have been working intensively with the applicant at Rotorua on a master planning exercise for that, and what has come to our attention and what was confirmed only yesterday afternoon is that applicant has extended his land holding. So the original application was for 60 hectares, and now that site is for 120 hectares. There is a map, a hard copy, which I'm hoping the governance staff can distribute to each of you. The resolution I want to include is up there on the screen, is that you just endorse the expanded application area for Rotorua area, stage 1, as per this map that is being tabled now, and it authorises the Chief Executive and for us to commence public engagement on that expanded area as per our SHA policy. So the reason why I'm bringing it to you later is because we've only had confirmation of that ownership arrangement yesterday afternoon in writing from the Green Seeds Group. It's a very, very strong commitment from them that they seek to expand their housing development in this part of the city, likely to yield at least 1,500 houses. They're very committed to paying for all of the requisite leading infrastructure for the project. This is really just a procedural matter that I need the council to sign off on, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, so it's moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor, you have a question?
I do, and I should have seen you prior to this meeting. I've had other things on my mind with the other council meetings. Item Maori Street and Eagle Way, where exactly? I'm just wanting to make sure that's, and I'm sorry if I've had a brain fade around exact geography, but it's around, the potential northern crossing, because Tarap, whereabouts? Can you just give me an idea?
Deputy Mayor, if you have a look at the attachments included in my report on page 108 of your agenda, there's a locational map there showing the proposed SHA site. That's the Maori Street Eagle Way location. So it's half of what was the Porter's HQ.
Right, yeah, opposite the base.
Opposite the base.
No, sure. I apologise. I should have picked that up. I'm just what I'd always say is, when we look at any of these areas, we've got some things like a northern crossing. Just hope, it's not anywhere on the books. That's what we do need desperately to get lines on the map.
Question, please, Deputy Mayor.
Well, the question is, obviously, you factor some of those long-term things as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but in relation to this particular proposal, it's a long way from where that proposed crossing would be.
Are you aware that all of the councillors are grateful for you and your team's work?
Yes, I am. Thank you again for passing on your thanks on yeah. Look, there's a whole team here that behind me that need to be recognised as well. So thank you very much for your kind comments.
Councillor Gary.
The expanding of this thing by double, is there any, that's a significant increase. Is there any reason why we wouldn't go out and reconsult on that?
No, that's what I'm asking you.
Oh, okay,
That's specifically what. So and once again, apologies for the lateness of that.
Think alike, yep.
So yeah, that's what I'm asking. I'm asking you to authorise me through the Chief Executive to consult on the expanded area.
Sorry.
Councillor Paula.
Yeah. Apologies, sorry. You said that they were prepared to fund the infrastructure required. What is that?
Well, that's what they've told us verbally. We're waiting for a signed PDA to come through, but that's the we're talking about all the infrastructure that we think is needed to support that. So that's lead in water, wastewater, stormwater, and we're having a conversation with them about reserves as well.
Okay. I'm interested. It looks like a fantastic opportunity. A couple of things I'm interested in. The reserves was going to be one of them, but the other thing is that given that there are some light industrial activities, more sort of big scale retail actually, in that area, will we have any requirements on this around reverse sensitivity or those kinds of things? Because sometimes that can cause a problem.
Are you talking about the Rotocarry proposal?
Yeah, this one on the map on the page 108, right?
Oh no, that's Maui, the Maui
Right,
Street Old Porters
sorry.
one.
So yeah, I've jumped ahead to the map. It's the wrong map. Okay, so there isn't a lot of activity around here that you would have reverse sensitivity issues over.
No, all of that.
Smell, noise, those things.
No, all of that land at the moment is set aside as future urban. But if you were to go out there, it effectively just looks like rural land. It's just empty paddocks, unimproved pasture. What I can tell you is, and we'll be reporting this fully in March, is that we've just come through probably the most intensive master planning session that I've been involved in the time that I've been at this organisation with them. Very, very positive collaborative experience. They've brought over a very well-known urban designer from Melbourne to lead that. This is going to lift the bar in terms of what we can expect to see in terms of urban development in Hamilton. So I'm very excited by the prospect of this project.
That sounds fantastic, and I'm all in favour of.
Councillor, questions, please, not comments. Questions.
It's a question. Now you just put me off my stride with interrupting me often. I am really keen on this, and as you know, the distribution of value houses across the different values. That's my question. Will we be talking with them around some, the affordability issue? Having a bit of a diverse offering within that pocket of land? There
will be a diverse offering. We have, in terms of what that looks like in terms of price points, no awareness of that at this point, but certainly there's the work that we've been doing over the last 3 days indicates a very wide range of housing typologies. So we're talking about a new, very small neighbourhood centre that would have apartments above the shops, would have apartments and terrace houses, very, very close building in the density around that, density around some of the open space areas, the open space swales that are being planned to deal with stormwater. So they serve a multiple dual function: ecology, stormwater, open space, passive and active recreation. Stuff around some of the larger reserves that we're looking to. So we've got sort of terrace-formed housing, looking on the public amenity areas. And then as you get to the edges, probably sort of slightly larger, more typical, suburban scale densities of sort of 600 square metres.
Oh, that answers my question completely. Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Councillor Mark.
Thank you, thanks, Luke, for this. Just a quick question on the Porters one, the Maui, that one. Have we got to the stage where we're talking about where the entranceway would be to that area, or is that still to come?
That is one of the matters that needs to be resolved. But if you refer to the map there, and then page 109,
Yep.
That's the concept layout at this stage, and that's being refined through work with ourselves and the applicant.
Right.
So if you can, if you're sort of looking at, if you're orientating the map, the plan that way,
see which way it's going.
you can see that there's a proposed entrance that comes off.
Maui Street, or the end of Maui Street?
Yeah, so there's a road that essentially needs to be formed right through the middle of that site.
Along to Eagle Way there, yeah.
Yeah, so it would effectively just be an extension of the existing roading network and create a link between this existing roading alignment right through to the other side.
So what would the process be, and how do you go about estimating how much traffic weight would be along, the Copeland's Bakery end?
Oh, that's through what's called an integrated traffic assessment.
Right.
So that's a standard traffic assessment process that we do for all major developments that generate effectively more than 500 vehicle movements per day.
Right. And do you know offhand what the threshold is for that? Is it?
I don't know what the total estimated number of trips are at this particular point in time. That work hasn't been completed.
Looks great though. That's great. Thank you.
So that concept will just so all elected members know, there will be some refinement between some of the concepts here because this is very high level, and as they go through more investigation, there'll be some slight modifications and changes eventually when they're reported to you for ultimately for recommendation, they may look different to what you're seeing at this point.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Councillor Paula.
Oh, no, I think Ziggy was first.
I'll just come back to you because you were asking questions earlier.
Just be a very quick one then. I know it's not the same site, I'm getting confused with the maps, but in terms of the proposal, any proposal like the one on page 108, the proposed SHA site there, what sort of conversation do we have around reverse sensitivity? If you place, housing in the middle of activities would have trucks coming and going and potentially noise and smells and things.
Yeah, they're matters that will be dealt with so that if you think of the typical reverse sensitivity effects that are assessed for a project are things like noise, lighting, glare, odour, dust, etc.
Sometimes amenity.
Collectively, those things will form a baseline for the amenity of a site. They will be dealt with at the qualifying development stage. So if you think of the tests around scheduling it as a special housing area, they don't go to that level of granularity. So it's really just a matter of, are we confident around layout? Are we confident around yield? Are we confident around things like traffic and flooding, stormwater? And does it meet our policy?
Yeah.
So reverse sensitivity in this area is something we'll take into account, but that can be offset by the likes of things like setbacks and landscaping, etc.
Oh, I know it can. I was just hoping that we have, wherever it sits, a sufficient framework to address that. It's so hard to deal with once it's done.
Yep.
It's hard to avoid. It's easier to avoid than to mitigate once you've done it and you've got the reverse effects, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, and the other thing just to note though, there is, for this site in particular, even under the baseline provisions of our district plan, it isn't a straight industrial location. It was something that had been resolved through a specific site appeal with Porters where there are quite specific setbacks and amenity and reverse sensitivity considerations, because this is a site that is in transition. There's already existing consents on there for 40,000 square metres of retail and industrial and commercial development. So this site, even though it has an underlying industrial zone, the future of it is not industrial.
No, I know that. It's just about the end effects. What we've got the framework to deal with the end effects.
Yep.
Councillor Siggy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Look, because it's under the SHAs, can we challenge the developers to make it more family friendly? I mean, it looks more like it, but you said that's not the end product yet. What we are seeing is just a high level concept. So can we challenge them on making it more family friendly, more cycle and walking friendly? How much influence do we have there?
They're conversations that we can raise with the proponent. To the extent that there are certain things they need to provide, and accessibility, connectivity, etc. Are those things. Making it family friendly is a harder proposition, because you know, we would need to be very clear about what that looks like. So I think in this one, I think for porters, you would see that there are some things in there that would lend itself to that description by the provision of open space, by the provision of common areas, by the fact that it's situated in an area that's very close to lots of amenity in terms of shopping and community facilities over across the road in the Te Ao area. It's very close to a park. So I think in this instance, I could say to you with confidence that it's not a thing that lends itself towards being family friendly. But we can certainly raise those things with them, but we've got to be really clear about what that means. But I think in this instance, it probably ticks the aspirations that you're after.
But just to be clear, the special housing process is about providing clarity to the developer about their bare minimum they need to progress with a special housing area. So we're very quite limited about what we can introduce at this stage. We've adopted a policy. We've effectively established what the residential zone, outcomes are going to look like. So for the district plan, so we have probably very little influence apart from suggesting it.
Yeah, we can raise it with
applicants. That's what I'm saying. You can mention it, but we can't hold anyone to account for it.
Okay, but that's what I'm wondering. Just can we at least have a discussion with it and give them some other ideas or something that they could think about? And I know you can't make them.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the board to vote.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to item 14 on page 34. So, General Manager or Dave, where did we get to? Or staff? Yep.
Yep. Okay, so apologies, Chris has just had to nip out. So the proposed change is that B reads, approve the following changes to the Hamilton City bylaw, noting that it will not come into effect until Waikato District resolves to adopt the change, and then it still retains the table that sits at the top of page 38 in your minutes and your agenda. And then C, we scroll down. So this is what Chris alluded to, just with the change with this meeting date, it hadn't been picked up in the bylaw. So it's adopt the bylaw, noting the administrative change to correct the date to this meeting being 14th of December.
Okay, I'll take Dave as the mover and Leo as the seconder, being the traffic people. Okay. All right, so we'll go to the board to vote. Yes, sure, Leo.
Robin, this will affect the enforcement of it, so you can't actually enforce this until the whole thing's through, is that correct? Because you have to produce to the court the order of council, which...
That's correct.
Yep.
So I guess we're recognising that this council supports the change. It's in keeping with the rest of it, but
Yep.
until Waikato make their equal and opposite, then it's not changing.
Sweet.
Okay, so we're voting.
The motion is carried unanimously.
So we're now going to item 16 on page 114. It's moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll take the report as read. Any questions? Okay, we'll go to the board to vote on this one. You should have read it before you came in.
Yes, I did, along with the several thousand of other reports lately, but thank you.
Okay, so we're voting. All those... Yes, done that.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you, Ricky and Corey, for a comprehensive presentation.
Okay, we're now moving to item 17 on page 135. Welcome, Brendan. We'll take the report as read. Are there any questions?
Wait.
So this is moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dave. Okay, can we go to the board? There's no discussion? No. We're voting, no talking. Four.
The motion is carried unanimously.
We're now on page 179, item 18.
The meeting will.
I'll take up in his performance review about his lack of brevity.
Moved option 1 by Councillor Ange, seconded by
Councillor Leo seconding it.
Councillor Leo. Leanne, anything you want to add?
No.
Okay.
Order. Sorry, I'm just on the recommendation page.
Which is option 1. It's confusing, isn't it?
Councillor Gary.
I don't actually agree with this one because I've always thought that the reason for the random ordering was to overcome any potential or possible or perceived advantage that a person has if they're beginning with A. And I thought this was just the random thing was the way to dispel any concern that is a factor.
Move an amendment.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'll move an amendment that we. Beg your pardon? No, Obark's here.
I'll just withdraw. It's not. Yeah, it's no good. Honestly.
So, okay, Gary, what would you like to put up? Hang on, I'm taking Gary's first.
Whatever you
Random.
want.
C.
Whatever you want. We'll withdraw.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Dave.
My point of clarification.
Yes.
The pseudo-random is done by the computer. It's this is the random.
There's random, and pseudo-random, which is just done once, and then every ballot paper's the same. Whereas random is genuinely everyone different.
Completely random every time.
In other words, sorry, and I apologise, been long as long as it is the same, what you're proposing, the same as the last local government election.
Yes.
Right, that's all I need to know. It's exactly consistent.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. That's the biggest
right.
thing, keep it all.
Councillor Mark?
No, I wasn't going to ask if we're just going to make observations. There's not many A's or B's.
Okay, we'll go
here,
to the
but,
board to vote. We're voting.
Hang on, sorry, so
That's it.
Yep.
Motion.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, we'll now move to, sorry.
Well, it was a question, it is relevant, and just its assurance from the governance manager, we've had a case in New Zealand, not Barnaby Joyce New Zealander of the Year, but we've had a case of some councillors in New Zealand standing not realising they have to be citizens and they have an expensive by-election. Can you just clarify publicly what we do in Hamilton to put beyond doubt someone's citizenship so we don't have to go for a by-election? Looking at Whangarei.
Hamilton City Council, particularly under Brendan's guideship, he introduced this. We require candidates to submit evidence of their citizenship at the point that they put in their nomination form.
Yeah, thank you. Because there's been at least 2 local authorities where they've had expensive by-elections because of that.
So just before we...
Done item 12? We have? Okay, thank you.
So just before we move to exclude the public, I just want to once again reiterate my thanks, and I'm sure other members of the council, on it's been a big year. We've had the HIF, we've had special housing areas, we've had the long-term plan, we've covered things. This city is growing in a way that's never been seen before, and this council and the councillors, you've enabled this to happen by voting through legislation to enable things to happen much faster, and staff have picked that up and they've really made a huge effort. And I know there's been huge hours worked. It's been a massive year, and I also want to thank Democracy. I want to thank our different teams, the 9th floor, our Chief Executive, who hasn't had an easy year. I want to thank the outside groups who have worked with council closely, the arts, the creative sector, the sporting sector, that they've all gotten behind where we're heading. I feel like Hamilton's in a really, really good place, and I just want to show my appreciation that this is a team effort. We're all in this together, and we're all linking arms and moving forward together for a great city, to keep the city great and to move forward to really exciting places. So I really am appreciative as the Mayor for the support that I've had from many different sectors, and I'm really, really proud of the city, and I just once again thank all those involved. It goes right down to people who run our staff room on the 3rd floor, who some of them are contractors who come in, who I'm sure feel that they're actually staff, because they are here, do huge hours. They clean this room when we finish at 12 o'clock, so it's ready to start again the next morning at 9:30. So yeah, just really appreciative, and I'll just open up the floor if anybody else wants to say anything. This would be an appropriate moment.
Very quickly, because you've been very generous with my speaking time. But look, can I just have it's not picking them out, because all the staff are valuable, but I'm just so aware of the governance team, particularly in the last week, where they've had to be concentration for 10 hours solid. They weren't coming, so I'd like a round of applause, if I may, and I'm sorry to pick them out for them.
And your elected members and their partners in SLT and their partners are invited back to my place for drinks. Was going to be for dinner tonight. It's going to be lunch now. After this meeting finishes. If people can make that work. Yep. Okay.